Hello, Driver's Ed students. Today we are going to discuss Chapter 5, Part 1 and Part 2. Chapter 5 is Reducing Risk with IPDE. I think IPD is the most important chapter that we'll do in the book. It is the basis for everything that we will do in the car while we are driving. First of all, we have to be able to identify and understand risk factors. Risk factors are anything that can increase the possibility of a collision. They can be driver-contributed risk factors, whether you're adjusting the radio, using your cell phone, eating or drinking. There could be vehicle-contributed factors that you are responsible for. It includes dirty windshields, bald tires, broken headlights, or worn wiper blades. And then roadway and environment contributive factors, road construction, the sharp curve in the road, ice and snow. Conditions such as bright sun, dark shadows, and glare also contribute to the driving task. You can watch a short little video here on IPDE.
You've got to constantly be IPDing everything in your target zone. I don't know what you're saying. IPD, identify, predict. Yeah, you said that, but it doesn't mean anything. IPD that. It's a child with a ball. Very good. Identify. Now, predict. Predict what? IPD! Yeah, you keep saying that like it's a word. Those 4 letters don't make a word. It's not helping me remember anything. Now you've got an oncoming vehicle. Pay attention to your 4 to 6 second zone. What is that? 4 to 6 second? IPD the car, Brian. IPD the car! What does that mean? Now check your gauges with one eye while keeping your other eye on the road. My eyes go in the same direction. What's your tire pressure? I'm in the car. Stop! Demerit! Stewie, I know how to drive. I've been driving for years. Ever hear of IPD, jackass?
That is a great video. Okay, the IPDE process, we want to develop good searching habits and the ability to manage space on the roadway are basic tools for low-risk driving. The IPD or IPD process, along with the zone control system, can help you enjoy low-risk and low-stress driving. Driving is primarily a thinking task. It is much more mental than it is physical. Okay, there's a lot of thinking going on, a lot of stuff we have to think about as we are driving. Drivers who develop an organized system that deals with all traffic possibilities have fewer crashes than drivers who don't use an organized system. The IPDE process is an organized system of seeing, thinking, and responding. Okay, it is 4 steps. I for identify, P for predict, D for decide, and E for execute. Okay, so what are we identifying? We are going to use a visual search pattern to identify open and closed zones. We're going to identify specific clues, other roadway users, roadway features and conditions, and traffic control such as stop signs and traffic lights. We need to predict. We are going to use knowledge, judgment, and experience to predict actions of other users, change of direction, points of conflict, and consequences of your own actions. Then we need to decide to use one or more action to change or maintain speed, change direction, and communicate. The final step, we will execute your decision to control your speed, steer, communicate, and combine actions. Whether you know it or not, you've been using the IPDE process for a long time. When you're riding your bike in the neighborhood, when you're at a crowded shopping mall or on crowded sidewalks, crowded halls in school, you're always identifying, predicting, deciding, and executing. So the first step is to identify. You must know where, when to look, where to look, how to look, and what to look for. The sooner you identify a possible hazard, the more time you will have to react safely. Clues you identify may cause you to change direction or speed, signal others, or perform any combination of maneuvers. Okay, the zone control system. You can see on the diagram here, there are 6 zones that we need to be aware of when we're driving. A zone is one of 6 areas of space around a vehicle that is the width of a lane and extends as far as the driver can see. An open zone is a space where you can drive without a restriction to your line of sight or to your intended path of travel. A closed zone is a space not open to you because of a restriction in your line of sight or intended path of travel. We have our front zone, our rear zone, our left front and our left rear zone, our right front and our right rear zone. We want to perform an orderly visual search pattern, and that is a process of searching critical areas in a regular sequence. We are going to look for clues in and around our path of travel in a systematic manner. Practice using your orderly visual search pattern as a passenger so it will become a safe driving habit. For an orderly visual search pattern, you should look ahead to your target area range, evaluate your zones, and search for possible changes in your line of sight and path of travel. Glance constantly in your rearview mirror. Evaluate your 4 to 6 second range. Look ahead to evaluate another 12 to 15 second range. Check your 4 to 6 second range. Glance in the rearview mirror, then check your speedometer and gauges. Okay, what is our target area? The target area is the section of the roadway where the target is located in the center of your intended path in the area to it right and left. Your line of sight is the distance you can see ahead in the direction you are looking. And your intended path of travel is the space your vehicle will occupy. Your path of travel is directed toward your target area. Okay, there are three searching ranges. The first searching range is your target area range. You can see on the diagram that's as far out as you can see. Okay, it's usually maybe about 2 blocks. The second searching range is the 12 to 15 second range, which is there in the middle. This is the space that you will travel in during the next 12 to 15 seconds. So it's about 1 block usually. The third range is the 4 to 6 second range in the space you will travel in the next 4 to 6 seconds. The area you can see around you while looking straight ahead is your field of vision, 180 degrees. You can see on the diagram there. The area you can see clearly and sharply is seen with your central vision. This is a narrow cone, only up to 10 degrees, so pretty much straight ahead in front of you. Your peripheral vision is the area you can see to the left and right of your central vision. The further away from the central vision, the less clear it is. So your peripheral vision is off to the side, which you'll be tested on when you get your learner's permit. We want to develop the art of scanning. We want to glance continually and quickly throughout your orderly visual search pattern. You should scan constantly while you drive, but do not stare. You'll hear your behind the wheel instructor telling you this a lot. Scan, don't stare. We want to use selective seeing, which means you identify and select only those clues and events that restrict your line of sight and can change your intended path of travel. All right, so what are we looking for? We're looking for zones that may close. We're looking for other roadway users, roadway features and conditions, such as intersections, which are high-risk areas. change from multi-lane to single lane, we don't want to wait until the last minute to change lanes. We want to be able to identify changes in lane width, the roadway surface, roadway hazards, and traffic controls. Now we're going to watch another video on the IPDE process. I'll do a little talking over the video while we're watching it.
The IPTE process enables you to enjoy safe, low-risk driving. There are 4 key steps in the IPTE process: identify, predict, decide, and execute. The IPTE process is an organized system of seeing, thinking, and responding to what you encounter on the roadway. The first step of the IPTE process is to identify. Watch the yellow car driving down this residential street. What can you identify that might affect your path of travel?
Let's try to identify all hazards here that would affect our path of travel. We saw a boy bouncing a ball, parked car, a crosswalk, oncoming vehicle, a little construction area up ahead, another crosswalk with a stop sign.
You should have identified a child playing with a ball, a car in the driveway, an oncoming car, and a road repair barricade. Also, the parked van causes a line-of-sight restriction that can block your view. When you search, you need to identify anything that could affect your path of travel: other roadway users, roadway conditions, traffic controls, and line-of-sight restrictions. Now, let's look at the scene you just saw again, this time with only one hazard, using an orderly visual search pattern to identify clues in and around your intended path of travel. This time you will view this scene from the driver's seat. First, look ahead to your target area to identify anything that might affect your path of travel.
Again, we're looking toward our target area.
Look for changes in your line of sight and path of travel.
We're looking about 12
to 15 seconds ahead.
down the road.
Notice that your left front zone is closed by the oncoming car, and that your right front zone is closed by the parked cars and van. Once again, look ahead to check your target area. Glance in your rearview mirror to check your rear zone. When you are in your 4 to 6 second range, check your front zone. Search to the left and to the right. Look ahead again to evaluate the 12 to 15 second range. Glance at your rearview mirror to check the rear zones. Check your speedometer and gauges occasionally. Then repeat this visual search pattern continually as you move forward. The second step of the IPTE process is to predict. Once you have identified a possible hazard, you should predict how it might affect your intended path of travel. Watch the yellow car driving down this residential street. What do you predict can affect your path of travel?
Think about what can affect your path of travel right here. The parked car, the oncoming car. And another parked car.
Now let's look at this situation again to see how the collision could be avoided. This time we will view the scene from the driver's point of view. To avoid the collision, you would identify a parked van restricting your line of sight and closing your right front zone. You would predict that a parked vehicle might pull out into your path of travel. You need to evaluate your zones to predict what action to take. You see that your left front zone is not open because of the oncoming car. Then you check to see if your rear zone is open. After you have made these predictions, what should you do next? The third and fourth steps of the IPTI process are to decide and execute. You will need to decide what action to take and then carry it out. Maintain or change speed, change direction, or communicate, or any combination of these actions. If you decide to slow down, you will execute by releasing the accelerator and then applying the brake. If your left front zone is open, you might decide to execute by steering into lane position 2. Sometimes you may also decide to communicate to others and execute by motioning to the other driver to proceed. Now you have learned how to use the IPTI process to identify, predict, decide, and execute. Later you will learn how to apply this process to other situations.
All right, a lot of good information in that video, especially the being able to identify hazards as the parked cars as hazards. As we drive around Oak Park, we'll notice that we are always dealing with parked cars on the side of the road. We always have to make sure that we are identifying those hazards. We are looking for turn signals, brake lights, pedestrians. We want to try to leave about a door length from those parked cars if we can. Okay, so section 5.2 is about the predict step. When you predict, you take the information you have identified and imagine what might happen. You predict where possible points of conflict may occur. Predicting involves what is happening in your zones, what could happen, and if it does happen, how the change could affect you. To predict, you must evaluate the situation and make a judgment about the possible consequences. As you gain driving experience, you will become more selective about which hazards or possible conflicts are critical. Do not assume other roadway users will always take the correct action.
Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Wade. I'm going to be continuing on with the discussion of Chapter 5 on IPDE. Mr. Kaysen took you through identify and predict, so we're going to continue that discussion by focusing on decide and execute. Now, you learned that in order to identify and predict, you have to start seeing things that's going around you. And as new drivers, that's going to be a little bit new to you, but as you gain more experience in your driving habits, you will start seeing things that you normally would not see. And hopefully you have discovered in the Google Classroom and the classroom and the classwork area under materials, you found the chapter textbook that you can, that area, so that you can go through and follow possibly this lesson presentation, but more importantly, how to do your homework in the future. So as we said, identifying was about seeing what you had to see and how to predict and then make the proper decisions. So with deciding, you have 3 potential decisions to make. And in any time, you may be using only one of these decisions, but then sometimes you will be using a combination of the 3. You'll be involving decisions on speed, how to change the direction of your vehicle when you see a hazard, and then how to communicate your decision, the actions you're going to make to others, so to lessen any particular or potential hazard involvement. So with speed, so in order to make a decision about speed on your own, for your own vehicle, you're going to ask yourselves these questions, or you can be making decisions based upon these 3 questions. So how do I maintain my speed? If you've been driving already with your parents, maybe you've already learned how to do that. But particularly when you start driving with us in the car with your instructors, you'll know maintaining your speed is having that good pressure control with your foot on the accelerator, and you learn how to maintain it. You'll also learn how to notice the speed limit and notice how the flow of the car movement feels at when you're going at different speeds at, let's say, 25 or 30. In Oak Park, most of the driving is going to be at 25. That would be the same in River Forest. But you're going to learn how to maintain your speed. You're going to learn how to slow down. And slowing down could be limiting your pressure on the accelerator or slightly using brake pressure. So you're going to learn how to do that. And then the other piece is how do you influence your speed is by speeding up. Speeding up allows you to maintain the speed limit or get to the speed limit from when you have been at a full stop at a red light or a stop sign. But these are all the three different decisions you're going to make, and you will learn how to make the decisions well as you gain more experience with your vehicle and with the feel of motion of the vehicle as you're driving. With the issue of changing direction, so in order to change your position on the roadway, remember the roadway is the road that you're traveling on, the street that you're traveling on, you will need to steer to the right or the left. That means maintain a position within your lane. We'll talk maybe a little bit further about that. So a greater change of direction might even be a lane change. Now around Oak Park, there aren't many streets that you have to be concerned about lane change because many of them are just two-way streets. Traffic going in opposite directions in one lane, like Oak Park Avenue, Lake Street, Chicago Avenue, Ridgeland, many streets like that. We do have multiple lane roads around Oak Park, mostly the border roads, being Harlem Avenue and North Avenue in particular. So to do a lane change or to make your position or to move your vehicle from right or left, you need to understand the zone around your car. Your zone, as we call it, a open zone, a space cushion, is to help you to avoid conflict. This is that space all around your vehicle, to the front, to the rear, to the right, and to the left. It's sort of like you see the picture on your left there. There's that bubble, that space, or for you space trekkies, you know, the force field around your vehicle that you're going to try to keep it open as at all possible so that you can have a safe travel down the path in which you're directing. So with doing so, going right or left or steering right or left, sometimes you're steering within your lane. You have to be in the proper position in order to do an action that's going to be requiring you. Lane position 1 is the center of the lane. This allows you to have a good look for the target area that's way in front of you, probably about at least 2 blocks. So that's the center of the lane between the yellow median line and the white line near the curb. Lane position is closer to the center line or the yellow line. And in most cases, that's where you're going to be using, placing your vehicles to position your vehicle for a left turn or possibly to go around parked cars. And again, that issue will be, or that action will be worked with you as you're in the car, and maybe it's already happening when you're in your car with your parents. As many parents are saying, get away from parked cars. All right, lane position 3 is the position you're going to be using that's closer to the right curb. And in many cases, that's where you position your vehicle in order to make a right turn. So you have 3 lane positions, 1 in the center, 2 to the left, 3 to the right. So with that, you're still going to have to manage your space, and you're going to get better with that because the safest place in traffic is where the fewest vehicles are around you. So you want to keep that space around your vehicle clear and clean. Leave yourself an out. Try to keep yourself away from any other action. And as you look at the vehicle, the picture on the left, you're showing that's not a good place to have open space around you, whereas the one on the right is maybe a little bit more of an exaggeration of an open space. But I think you're getting the point that you want to keep the space around you as open as possible so as to avoid any potential conflicts. The other element is changing direction. And to do so, you may have to make the decision of how to communicate. As you see on the slide, it says communication clears confusion, and confusion causes collisions. That's what we want to do, is to avoid collisions. I believe there's no such thing as an accident. Things just don't happen. Things happen because of confusion between roadway users. So we're going to help you understand how to send and receive those messages to help reduce any possibility of conflict with other roadway users. So how are you going to do that? You're going to use your lights. Dependent upon the time of day, it could be using your high beam lights that you learn how to flash. But in most cases, your signals are going to be evident of communication for drivers to let you know that you're planning to turn. Your brake lights are going to tell folks that you're planning to stop or beginning to stop, or reverse as you're coming out of a parking space or you're backing up to get into a parking space. There's your horn that many of you will learn how to use if you haven't already done so. Vehicle position, again, relates to that lane position. Are you in the center? Are you up to the left or to your right? And as you're driving, as you position your car in those positions, other roadway users will know just where you're planning to go or what you're planning to do. Now, eye contact is another important one, because as you see in the picture in the figure on the right, the person in the red car is signaling and making eye contact with you to let you know that either she is or he is going to wave you on to allow you to have the right of way through the intersection, or they're telling you that I'm going to go first. So telling you I'm going to go first relates to body movement. Basically, it means that your body's inside the car. As that car moves, you're telling the other roadway user that you plan to take the right of way or to move first. But there's other things you need to know. You need to see, as you see on the screen, you need to know how to handle hazards. So as you've identified and are predicting that there is a hazard in front of you, you're going to need to know, how do I minimize myself with that hazard? How do I separate myself from that hazard? And how do I compromise my space with a hazard? So minimize, as you see, it says put more distance between you and the hazard, meaning moving away from parked cars. Separate means to adjust your speed, and we talked about how to change your speed. It could be braking, or it could be easing your foot off the accelerator so that you can only deal with one hazard at a time, meaning you may be approaching parked cars and there's a bicyclist coming in another direction or also in front of you, and you're adjusting your speed to allow that bike to get ahead of you. Because we want to avoid handling multiple hazards at the same time. Okay. Compromising says give as much space as possible to the greater hazard. So that just means that as you're looking ahead and you've identified and predicted that there are greater hazards or multiple hazards, I'm going to look at one which is greater. Now, think in your textbook for all of these, you're seeing examples of how to judge and see just what a greater hazard might look like. And I believe there is one example in your textbook on the compromised space hazard. You see a large truck who is approaching you from the opposite direction, and they are avoiding a hazard. They're minimizing and separating themselves from a hazard that they see in front of them, and they're moving over into your lane. And in your lane, there are parked cars. So the greater hazard is a truck that's moving into your space. So you're going to change speed or change direction to allow that greater hazard to leave, and then you will minimize and handle the hazards of the parked cars. So minimize, separate, compromise. Learn these well, because they will be things that these are three things you'll have to learn how to identify and handle in your future driving. So again, minimize hazards. We see the three pictures that we see. We see at the upper left there, we see a person either getting in or getting out of a parked car with the car door open. And you see beyond that a stop sign. You see that traffic's not approaching you. So to give more distance, you are going to you're going to move yourself to the left to go around that vehicle. If the person has not closed their car doors, so as to minimize and give you a distance between that particular scenario. The other one you see is that you're driving in your direction with an open zone in front, but you see bicyclists on your left. And knowing the unpredictability of bicycles as to which direction they may go, sometimes they change directions abruptly. So you may move over to lane position 3 in your lane in order to give you greater distance between those particular hazards that you've seen. And then the last one we see on the far right, you see the yellow car moving down a two-way street on your side with parked cars on your side near the curb. And to give yourself distance, you're moving to lane position 2 so that you are giving distance between you and parked cars. With separating, again, you're seeing multiple hazards. In your case, the one on the left, you're seeing that you're approaching your path with another vehicle going around parked cars from the opposite direction. So again, you're going to change your direction, or you're going to change your speed depending upon what's the best choice to make. And I would say in this case, it would be to change your speed. And then in running right, again, we see multiple hazards. We see parked cars. We see a pedestrian approaching, possibly one of those parked vehicles. You see a double parked FedEx truck. You see oncoming traffic in the opposing lane. We see parked cars on the other side of the street. So what will I do to separate them? I'm going to separate myself from those multiple hazards. I'm going to change speed and direction so I can give myself space to see and allow the greater hazards, which in this case could be the parked cars, to pass through, and then move around the double parked vehicle if it has not moved out of the way. Compromise is, again, another point of looking at multiple hazards. But in this case, it's particularly what is the greater one? And the greater one that is moving possibly into my path of travel. So if you look at the one on the right, you see that the larger truck moving out of their lane, giving themselves distance from the vehicle that's either parallel parking or coming out of a parking space. But because you're predicting that it may come into your lane, you can see that the yellow car is choosing to stop, change directions, moving closer to the parked cars. That gives open space to the greater hazard. Now, what could have been better is if that greater hazard, the big truck, could have waited and changed its speed or direction to let the parked car come out. So these are things you're going to have to be learning to see and how to respond to. So in the whole story here, we're saying that IPDE takes time and practice. It takes time and practice to put these decisions we just gone over into action. It takes experience to see things. It takes experience and practice to understand what those hazards might be like. So you must have time to identify clues and to change, and then changing zones. Remember the space cushion. You must have time to predict the actions of others. You need to know the more the complex the traffic situation, the longer it takes to carry out the process. So that means maintaining speed limit and changing speed or direction in order to have better understanding of what decision you need to make. So as you ride with other drivers, practice the I and the P, the D and the E, know all those steps, and with your parents, ask them questions about, am I identifying, or maybe in many cases your parents will be asking the question if they haven't. Get used to the fact that they're going to be asking you, do you see that car? What are you going to do about it? What decision are you going to make? How are you going to execute? And as you continue to get better and better with your practicing, these decisions on the IPDE process will work for you. So again, let's look at another examples. So as you gain more experience with driving, you're going to predict that before that ball came out, you saw the young children on the right on the sidewalk playing with the ball. So identifying them playing with the ball on the sidewalk, you can predict that as they play, as most children do, the possibility of that ball coming out of the street as you see there. So by identifying and predicting, you've already changed your speed so that when the ball comes out, and more than likely the children will follow after the ball without looking to see if a car is coming, you'll be in a better position to respond to the hazard by braking and stopping and allowing them to retrieve the ball. In this particular scenario, again, you're looking at all the hazards that are potential. You see large trucks, parked cars. You see the vehicle in front of you with the possibility of brakes, which you can't see, but you're going to learn to identify. If there are stop signs, your eyes are going to start learning how to scan and notice where stop signs are placed at intersection. So in this case, with this Cisco truck is blocking the right side of the intersection that you're approaching, you're going to change your speed to travel slowly so that you can have a better look of scanning the intersection so that you're in a better position with a slower speed to execute a good decision. In this scenario, your decision could be to go straight through the intersection. You're at a stop sign. In this case, it looks like it could possibly be a four-way, but in any event, you see pedestrians. One thing you see, the pedestrians are looking before they cross, but they are crossing the intersection at the crosswalk. And you'll have learned by now that when you see pedestrians, once they enter the crosswalk, it is required by Illinois law for vehicle drivers, all cars, to stop for pedestrians to go through. But in any case, you're identifying pedestrians, you're identifying, predicting that they're not interfering with your path of travel if you're continuing through the intersection. You can look to see left and right if things are clear for you to go through, and you're going to make the decision that it is okay for me to proceed through. I have the right of way through this intersection, and I will execute that decision. So what we have, guys, is the finish of the Chapter 5 on IPDE. Again, remember, you're new drivers. As you gain experience with practicing with your parents and with instructors, as we start in-car instruction, you'll gain more understanding of what to be looking for, where should I be looking, how should I be looking, how the motion of a vehicle is, so that as I move forth, I will be making good execution of my vehicle on the roadway.